to start off, we'll let you know a little bit about
Welcome to RetroWare TV. In the long history of adventure video games, the play mechanics have been evolved, altered, and reinvented again and again. Text-based adventure games preceded point-and-click, and the elements of role-playing were added and built upon to create new genres and unique methods of telling a story in the video game medium. Hideo Kojima is a storyteller who creates his stories much as a filmmaker would. The elements of action, mystery, and investigation are the hallmarks of his work. Using the point-and-click elements developed over the years, Kojima, with Snatcher and Policenauts, progressed his interactive cinema genre into something that was both unique and innovative to the video game medium. Policenauts would be his last straight interactive cinema game. It is obvious that Policenauts was a story close to Kojima's heart. Policenauts posters could be seen in Metal Gear Solid, as well as an entire anime sequence lifted from the game. The series references to Tokugawa Industries, the use of artificial blood and skin discoloration, as well as discussion of Foxhound and the character Meryl were all borrowed first from Policenauts and used in the Metal Gear Solid series. Even Metal Gear Acid for the Sony PSP featured playing cards showing some main figures from the Policenauts game. It was such a loved project that not only did the game's characters and stories make appearances in elements and references within future Kojima games, but the story setting itself was the very groundwork of a fantastical dream held by Kojima for his own personal life. During an interview with Hideo Kojima in the Japanese retro gaming program Game Center CX, he gave some insight into how the story behind Policenauts was an occupational dream he held close to his heart.
僕はその小説家になりたかったりですね、映画監督になりたかったんですけども、なかなかそんな美味しい仕事はなくてですね、どうしようかなと悶々としてた。これはもしかしたら映画に変わるメディアじゃないかなっていうふうに、でそこからですねゲームを今までは遊び手として接してましたけども、ゲームクリエイターになりたいぞとかそんなのは全くなくて、僕は宇宙飛行士になりたいぞとか
そっちの方がやったんですか？
ロス死刑の殺人家になりたいとかねそんなことを思ってた。
殺人家限定ですか？
限定ですね。もうロス死刑じゃないとダメなんですよ。
ロスでニューヨーク
うちのかみさんがみたいなそれかなり影響を受けてるんで。
We have looked at the history and background of this interactive and classic game, but what about gameplay and the experience of using the interface? To begin, Policenauts is definitely not a game for everyone. The game is a linear and most often a passive experience. To many gamers, this could be considered slow and boring. For those willing to accept a different kind of game, the story and depth of the gaming environment will not disappoint. Policenauts is less of a video game and more of a new way of watching a movie. Right from the introduction, where a female voice welcomes you to the game, she presents the game as a show that should be viewed and enjoyed. Policenauts is the perfect blend of a novel and a film. The enjoyment of watching a well-crafted story with appealing visuals is mixed with the detail and involvement that one experiences only when reading a good book. It's like experiencing a great novel and watching its film adaptation all at the same time. But along with these elements, there are sporadic action sequences and puzzles to divide the narrative's flow. The game has a prologue, an epilogue, and 7 main acts. The first few acts are quite extensive, as later acts move faster and include singular scenes and scenarios that propel the storyline to its climax and the main story revelations. Just as the Policenauts trailer boasts, this is truly the next generation of Snatcher. Thanks to the added capabilities of the PlayStation when compared to the Sega CD, the menu interface has been improved and become more tactile and open-ended than the simple text menus that limit the interactivity in Snatcher. In essence, you can never interact with the visuals of Snatcher other than the simple 9-box grid of the shooting scenes within the game. But with Policenauts, all interactions begin by simply moving the arrow cursor over objects in the playfield, allowing you, Jonathan Ingram, the ability to look, talk, move, and interact. Progressing through the story involves advancing through the various conversation and investigation trees within the interactive menus. This also involves clicking on the proper areas of the screen and investigating objects that are relevant to the storyline. In 1994, when Policenauts was first released, the internet was still a new medium, and while it is hard to think of a time before high-speed access and wireless hotspots, the mid-90s was a time when everything was dial-up and the overall visual and interactive language of web surfing was still being developed. Because of this, the point-and-click logic may seem somewhat antiquated and limited. There are no hotspots on screen or indications of which conversations have been wrapped up, allowing the player to move forward in the selections. Current adventure games like Phoenix Wright have advanced the adventure genre by providing check marks next to conversations that have been completed, as well as allowing you to quickly advance through the conversations that have already been read. Policenauts requires the player to often go back to the same topics over and over again in order to learn new information. For players interested in moving forward quickly and avoiding rereading, this can occasionally become tedious. But the story is clear and the plot is engaging, so knowing what to discuss and investigate next is relatively apparent to players who are paying close attention. That being said, paying attention in Policenauts is not a problem. The story is engaging, and much like Snatcher, those who take the time to fully explore, investigate all areas, and have all conversations will be rewarded with a rich environment that, unlike a movie, you can really feel a part of. Also, much like Snatcher, Hideo Kojima has provided the player some nefarious and perverted abilities. Jonathan Ingram is able to be as much of a dog as you want him to be, even if it is only limited to repeatedly being able to touch almost every female character's breasts and make lewd comments about their appearances. There is no doubt that thanks to Policenauts.net, the translation has stayed true to the same intentions while maintaining the same innuendos of the Japanese version. Between subject matter, violence, sexuality, and coarse language, nothing is left off the table or overly westernized by censorship. Mark Laidlaw and the rest of the translation project have done so well that the localization is in no way forced or awkward. The cadence, vernacular, and intention of the language is fluid and just about as perfect as can be expected. You will never think that you're experiencing a fan translation. I can't imagine a translation being any more official than this one already is. One of the only comments I have is that because of the limitations of a fan translation, we are not able to hear the voice in English. But really, because of the superb Japanese voice acting, it's actually better to hear the original vocal inflections when mixed with the English subtitles. One criticism I have is that when reading dialogue on screen, we are simply given a box to the left of the text indicating the character's name. When reading quickly, it is easy to mix up who is speaking in certain moments. Konami could have added small character icons which would have made it easier to keep track of the conversation. But this limitation is still very small and not detrimental to the gameplay. Along with the investigations and conversations, the game is mixed with action sequences and small strategic elements that add to the interactivity. There are puzzles and even a tense and intricate bomb diffusion sequence that requires some review and concentration. The most action-oriented events involve the shooting scenes. Just as Snatcher added a shooting range in the Junker headquarters building, the Beyond Coast Police Department also had its own, more involved and complex shooting range. There are shooting challenges and opportunities to even take on Meryl, Dave, and other characters from the game, depending on the success of your shooting abilities. This is good practice for future battles throughout the game. Unlike Snatcher and its simple grid mechanism during shooting segments, in Policenauts you have full range on screen to move your red aiming reticle. Because the PlayStation version of the game does not allow for light gun support, Using the control pad allows you to lock over targets, considering the D-pad is the only control you can use. You must reload your weapon as well. For Policenauts, I cannot emphasize enough the value of investing in the PlayStation mouse. Not only does it simplify the point-and-click interface, but it allows for an infinitely more accurate shooting ability. My only advice is to use the control pad during some more elaborate, puzzle-solving moments, where the loose movement of the mouse cursor can affect your outcome. All in all, using the mouse is actually very responsive and natural, and after all the years of using Macs and PCs, the simple one-button point-and-click style of gameplay becomes very easy to understand. When playing with a mouse, Policenauts becomes a game you can play with one hand and one button. Thanks to a control option menu and an auto-save feature, Policenauts can truly be an enjoyable, if albeit passive, gameplay experience. My biggest fear when playing Policenauts for the first time was that the experience I waited 15 years to have would end far too quickly. I am happy to say that while Snatcher can take 6 hours to complete, Policenauts can be finished within a range of 8 to 11 hours, and while that can still be considered short, and replaying a film-styled game may not be something you would want to do again right away, the story is so engaging and rich with detail that sitting down and playing through this title every year or so would not be out of the question. There is no doubt that with the advances and changes with how people interact with the mouse, and with the added elements that games like Phoenix Wright have contributed to the adventure game platform, Policenauts could benefit from a full restoration, improving upon the video capabilities of the original PlayStation, and advancing the point-and-click interactivity issues that can age this game to so many of today's players. In fact, all non-anime game artwork was originated in a high-resolution format and downscaled to fit the PlayStation's graphical limitations. This would lend itself easily to a new version of the game. The original images are also available for viewing in the Policenauts visual databook. Please stay tuned for the conclusion of RetroWare TV's look at Policenauts. We will have a conversation with some of the translation team and provide backstory to this extensive and revolutionary undertaking that has allowed English-speaking gamers the ability to experience a truly remarkable game for the first time. We will have one last look at the Hideo Kojima masterpiece and the group of dedicated fans who took time from their lives to make an English version, becoming part of the game's history. Please check back to RetroWareTV.com for Part 3 of Policenauts, a video game odyssey.